Hello everybody, David Schuster here. U.S. stock markets are off to a rocky start this week following new revelations about Donald Trump's economic policies. When the opening bell rang Monday at the New York Stock Exchange and Nasdaq, most stocks began in the red with trading losses. CNBC stocks retreat to start week as yields spike on U.S. debt downgrade. New York Times markets rattled on concerns about U.S. debt. Stocks fell, the dollar slipped, and bond yields jumped after a rating downgrade highlighted worries about the cost of President Trump's policies and the health of the economy. That ratings downgrade is from Moody's, which stripped the United States of its last AAA credit rating. The agency pointed to the Republican bill in Congress that would make President Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent and add trillions of dollars in federal debt. In downgrading the U.S. credit rating, Moody's cited the tax cut legislation along with broader concerns about the fiscal deficit and growing debt costs. The move by Moody's means that all three major rating agencies no longer consider the United States qualified for their top credit ratings. At the White House, Trump Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt dismissed the news.
When you look at the world has confidence in the United States of America and our economy once again. The president just last week secured trillions of dollars in investments from countries in the Middle East.
Trillions of dollars, says Leavitt. $1.2 trillion in investment just from Qatar, says the Trump White House. Never mind that Qatar's annual gross domestic product, or GDP, is only $200 billion. So either the Trump team got Qatar to pledge 6 years of its total economic activity to Trump, or Donald Trump is lying. Also, as the Washington Post reports, Trump is taking credit for Middle East deals that predate his presidency. In Doha, the administration announced $8.5 billion in projects involving the Texas energy company McDermott, including one focused on Qatar's liquefied natural gas expansion. But the company previously announced contracts for that initiative during Joe Biden's presidency in 2023 and 2024. When Trump was in Abu Dhabi on Thursday, the White House announced $200 billion in new commercial deals with the UAE. Much of the corporate funding came from a cloud computing deal between Amazon and the UAE state-owned telecommunications company E, which the White House claimed would contribute $181 billion for the local economy by 2033. But Amazon had already announced that contract in October.
He has all of these big headlines, right? We're getting all of this investment, like the $8.5 billion out of Qatar for Texas energy company McDermott. That was already announced in 2023 and 2024. Abu Dhabi, he says, new $200 billion. That's a cloud computing deal with Amazon, also announced during the Biden administration. Saudi's allegedly giving us $600 million. We haven't haven't documented all of it, but we do know that the airport project was announced last August. So the Washington Post has documented all of this, that at least a half a dozen of the contracts that he's talking about happened under the Biden administration. And that is something that Trump likes to do. He likes to show up and then take credit for things that
what about the other half?
People did. The other half, I'll give it to you, $300 billion of the $600 billion. But don't go out there and say you got $1.4 trillion in investment when you didn't really. Or at least give a nice, signal to the previous guy and say, hey, actually,
there is no previous guy.
Yes, on top of the right-wing talking point that Trump got trillions from the Middle East, there is the nonsense about Joe Biden. Because Biden was in worse mental and physical shape than his team had let on, it negates all of the economic and policy successes in the Biden administration. Anyway, back to the markets. Investors and stock analysts are clearly not being fooled by the Trump administration's flim-flam. The fears about Donald Trump's tax policies and the mountain of debt his team is piling up are causing real financial concerns. And the irony is that in the wake of Trump dropping most of his global tariffs announced on his April 2nd Liberation Day, the markets have clawed back most of the losses that Trump's trade war inflicted. But now, with Trump's easily disproven claims about Middle East investment levels in the United States, and Trump's encouragement of tax cuts for the rich, which will explode the deficit, the ratings agencies are downgrading America's credit. And the markets are again on another roller coaster. Making matters worse, the Trump projections about the future benefits of his policies are nonsensical, according to the experts. And all of the debt and financial problems the United States faces now could easily get worse.
This one big, beautiful bill is going to add $3.3 trillion to the deficit if everything is temporary, is kept temporary. And if they extend things permanently. It's going to add $5.2 trillion to
be
the
fair-
deficit.
But it's worse.
Right.
Because just imagine, these projections are all made on a 10-year basis.
Yeah.
And they assume, consistent economic growth. So just imagine the Trump tariffs because of the uncertainty and the variability, and is it 145% yesterday or 40% today on China? Imagine we have a recession. In the last 5 or 6 recessions, the budget deficit actually blows out because tax revenues go down and spending increases, so-called automatic stabilizers. So what today is 6.4% of GDP as a deficit, $2.4 trillion deficit, could easily expand to $4 trillion if we had a recession. So they are risking a fiscal disaster.
They, the Trump team and the Republicans in Congress, are risking a fiscal disaster. And instead of talking honestly about their policies, their plans, and the tough choices, the Trump team keeps living in fantasy land. Markets and investors do not like it. The instability is bad for America, and confidence keeps plunging with American consumers and with the professional credit ratings agencies like Moody's. America's economy and finances are in trouble, and they are getting worse under Donald Trump, not better. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.